policies too, for sure. Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle as to strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was alive. The president never gave me any deadline.
Thank you everyone for staying with us here on Global Television. I'm Wiyag Mofwegbe. We're live in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. It's a delight to welcome you to Global Morning. It's a great Monday, and no doubt about that. Business week has just begun. Schools have resumed. And for President Bola Tinubu, it's been several days of not being around, not being in the country. First attending the G20 summit all the way in India, and then we understand that he had also had a stopover in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. Now, in the last couple of days, starting with his stay in India, he had time to interact, if you like, interface with leaders across the world, including those in the business and corporate space. We understand that the president has been making very deliberate efforts aimed at attracting foreign direct investment into Nigeria. One of them, we're told, is some $14 billion prospect, hopefully coming into the economy. And the president has also not failed to have interactions around not just oil and gas, but basically tech. Of course, the blue economy is a priority, we understand, for this government. He has also had time to talk about other very salient areas of the economy where Nigeria can partner with people from around the world. But in all, we'll be taking our time this morning to look at 100 days in office of the president, which actually rounded off just a few days ago. What these 100 days mean, what has been achieved so far, have there been misses? Are there areas where opportunities have been missed, where the government has gotten off on a bad foot, or better still, do we have areas where we have made impacts, where there has been substantial change for the better in terms of the impact it has on Nigerians? Ultimately, we want to look at all of those. The president has received very vehement criticisms in over certain actions or policies, or if you like, pronouncements of this government. Chief amongst them, the removal of fuel subsidy. For some, subsidy should be left to stay. After all, that's, according to them, the only thing the everyday Nigerian enjoys. Others are saying removal of fuel subsidy is long overdue. However, the approach to it, the method adopted by the Tinubu government was a wrong one, because they believe that there should have been specific measures in place by way of palliative already before that announcement was made. However, the president continues to insist that there was no better time to do it. That yes, even though there is need to have put palliatives in place, but the previous government of former President Muhammadu Buhari had only covered subsidy payments till end of June. And as such, government needed to take that drastic action, which of course it understands will cause short-term pain, but bring or become a long-term blessing for Nigeria. In the meantime, we're seeing the federal government roll out a couple of initiatives by way of palliatives. We're seeing some sort of collaboration with sub-nationals, states across the federation. We've seen the 5 billion naira loan. We've seen some states, for example, also rolling out buses, others cutting costs of fares. We're seeing those who have had to review things like tuition in public schools, especially tertiary institutions, and so on and so forth. We want to look at all of this and see what the last 100 days or the first 100 days of this government have been like. In what specific areas have they impacted Nigerians? We'll take a look at all of that for you today. We'll also look at the papers and bring you big headlines. All of that will begin right after this short break. Do stay with us. Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding. Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle, the ASU
The
strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Let's turn to the papers, everyone. Let's begin with Daily The Nation newspaper. I should say this morning, big story here says Tinubu strikes multiple deals with Germany, Korea, India. Writers here say world leaders pledge more interest in agriculture, fintech, education, defense. German Chancellor for Nigeria next month. President in UAE to resolve bilateral disagreements. Brilliant moves there by Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu. All right, we have a picture of Minister of Works here, Senator Dave Umahi. He says federal roads collapse across states. VP directs urgent action on Jalingo Yola Road. Governors seek Umahi's quick intervention. The Ministry of Housing, of Works under Senator David Umahi has had to, has had this back and forth in the last 1 week or so over whether or not to stay with asphalt or revert to concrete roads. We hope that is resolved as quickly as possible so Nigerians can drive on smooth roads again. But above the nameplate here says United Nigeria 6 slots into London, Dubai, other routes. Ogun government, Daniel's wife clash over vandalized plaza. Acquisition of banks, CBN deputy governor quizzed. That's on page 6 of today's Nation newspaper. President's fair to Igbo with appointments, says Soludo. That's the governor of Anambra State there talking. 26 die in Niger boat accidents. That's sad story. Has details on page 66. Eagles wallops Tome 6-0. That match was yesterday. It was quite an interesting outing for the Super Eagles. Okay, let's just before I get my guest in for our discussion this morning, let's take a look at the Daily Trust newspaper. The Star story here, the Star headline says uncertainty over electric vehicles takeoff in Nigeria on page 4 of the Daily Trust. That has to do with some policy issues as well, because you need to have the infrastructure, you need to have the system for EVs, that is for electronic vehicles. We know of countries, for instance, that have fully adopted the electronic vehicle going forward, all right, by way of discouraging vehicles, the use of vehicles with, that depend on dirty fuel, as some people will call it. So electronic vehicles are the way to go, no doubt about that. If you look at a country like Britain, for instance, just about 3 years ago, the authorities there had announced that by 2040, they would have had almost 100% adoption of electronic vehicles. But the question is, as it stands today, can we boast of same in Nigeria? Well, if we put in the work, if we become more deliberate about what we want to accomplish, all right, with alternatives to the traditional vehicles as we know them, then we probably can accomplish that. But again, that will require manpower. It will require visionary leadership. It will require actually understanding the direction of technology and how that the world is going green real fast. It will require massive, intentional investments in key sectors, including technology and, of course, automotive engineering, basically. All right. We're taking a break at this point, everyone. When we return, you will be my guests, and we will put the show on the road full blast. Do stay with us. Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle, the ASIS
The
strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
the legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle, the ASIS
The
strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Let's go talking, everyone. It's a great morning, no doubt about that. We understand that the President Tinubu still has not returned to the country, apparently still pushing his foreign investment objectives. All of the efforts to attract foreign direct investments into the country. Some analysts have said, look, the President has gotten off on the very right footing, and as such is getting the results that this country has long yearned for. However, you still have those who have been able to whip up criticisms in certain areas. But again, this stretches far beyond the removal of fuel subsidy and all of the repercussions that have actually trailed it. I'm joined by my first guest on the show this morning. Sunday Ayami is a veteran journalist. It's a delight that you're joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Great. So you and I have talked here a couple of weeks ago, just about a fortnight ago, about Nigeria and all of the issues around the Renewed Hope agenda. Now, President Tinubu has been out of the country for a couple of days now. First, he had been in India to attend the G20 summit. And from all assessments, it will appear the president put up a good show, as it were, while in Asia. But now he has also gone to the United Arab Emirates, so he's able to have discussions with authorities there with regards to the bad blood, so to speak, that has existed in recent times between that country and Nigeria. Walk us through the last 100 days of this government.
Yeah, last 100 days of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I would say there are some ups and downs. Because one, he gave us the impression from day one that it's not going to be Nigeria as usual that we used to have, where during his acceptance speech, he just announced fuel subsidy removal. And that thing has taken Nigeria back. Indeed, Nigerians are back, that speech. Because we had expected, well, all the candidates at that time before the election, for instance, Atiku canvassed fuel subsidy removal, Obi, same thing, Tinubu, the same thing. But not on the day of your acceptance speech. We had thought maybe it will fall in line with their 100 days. Put on some palliatives, not putting the cart before the horse,
But just to add to the argument, there are people who also say that even if the president had waited a couple of months into his government to announce it, the money to even pay subsidy for those months was not there in the first instance. So did he really have any option other than what he did?
Other governments paying? Now, listen, see, the thing is, you just put certain things in place. I cannot come and tell you that, look, I want to graduate you from using a pencil as a primary school student without teaching you how to start using pen. Otherwise, it will blow all over. You see how primary school children look like when they come back from school, they use biro, ink all over them. You must teach them first. Put these things in place. Don't put the cart before the horse. So that we now know that, okay, fine. And segment it. You have to segment it. Don't take it holistically, just as he did. Now, a friend of mine just told me how many days ago he traveled to Lagos and back with his car for 210,000 naira or so for fuel alone. But if he goes alone on public transport, it's just about 30,000.
To and back.
Yes. So now, you can't travel with your vehicle. That's what it means. Unless you are a transporter. You can't. So this thing would have happened segmentally, so that Nigeria, at least you cushion that effect gradually and we get used to it.
But should Nigerians judge President Tinubu's 100 days in office solely on the basis of removal of fuel subsidy?
Fuel, as you know, is linked to so many things. Somebody will tell you that even house, accommodation, because it's buying fuel, cement and is transporting that fuel, it is costly now in the market. They are not to talk about workers that are going to work, for goodness sake. You go to market, we all go to the same market. Everything has changed. Everything. You can't think of anything that still remains stable as it were before this administration.
How would you assess the manner in which President Bola Tinubu has handled labor issues as against what we had in the past?
Well, I think excellently, very, very excellently, because labor, aside from the last warning strike they embarked on last week, labor too, they are all humans. They also want to see that the government is listening to them. It's not as if they want to punish Nigerians or they want to flog the government. They too are human. They're in government too. So now Tinubu has made this in such a way that, and he has promised that, look, we know what we are going through as workers. We know what you are going through. Now, this is how we are going to handle it, by increasing salaries, which had not been done by any administration, except maybe once during the former president. But at least they set up 100,000 naira minimum. But again, that 100,000 naira minimum wage will spark up inflation. This is Nigeria that we are.
So it brings us back to where we are.
It brings us back to where we are. I woke up this morning, I was just looking at my mails, and I saw one mail that said that the central bank is planning a redenomination of the naira by bringing out 2 zeros, just like what Ghana did some years ago, and making it equal to the dollar. Well, that one too is good, but it will now make some people that have this money not to take it to the bank, because if you redenominate it, you have asked the bank to remove the 2 zeros from whatever they are going to collect from you. But if it is in their homes, they know what to do with it.
Right.
You understand? So that thing, because anything that is good, any policy that you think you are bringing that is good, also has a bad effect of it. That is the Nigeria that we have.
Labour has asked for 200,000 minimum wage.
Yes.
Again, that's the proposition.
Government is saying 100,000.
Exactly, but which is fair enough. I mean, for a government that currently pays 30,000,
yes.
even though we know some states still struggle to pay the 30,000. But let's look at the deadline that has already been set by the Tinubu administration with regards to fixing refineries. They say at least one of the refineries, in particular Port Harcourt, will be up and running by end of December. But it's not the first time we have seen such a promise. What do you think may be different about this one?
Well, what may be different about this one is because a different person is on seat now. It's on the saddle now. It's driving the ship. I think that will make it different from the other one. Now, remember the last time I said here that our refineries, we are tired of hearing all these things. We are tired. Because every time you talk about turnaround maintenance, and there is nothing that has turned around at all. And people are still there working in a place that is not producing, paying salaries. So what are they doing there? So now that Tinubu has said, okay, fine, by December, he said he's going to start with Port Harcourt. After Port Harcourt, you have Warri. After Warri, you have Kaduna. And I spoke with a marketer who said, if these three, in fact, even that of Port Harcourt alone, if it works, if it starts working, that fuel will be less than 200 naira per liter. He said, he assured me. He assured Nigerians too. And that is what we want. Let it not just be on paper. We want action. And that is what Nigerians need. See, when you say you are celebrating 100 days in office, it's not if you are putting 100 structures, building 100 empires, but that thing that makes the average Nigerian cushion the effect of livelihood is even more than 100 structures and 100 empires.
You just used the term a while ago, action. President Tinubu has been described by some Nigerians as an action president against the backdrop of what we had seen with other presidents in the past. They say he's proactive, he's making all efforts to match words with action. As we speak, he's not in the country. He has been making efforts to attract foreign direct investments. At least we can see that with the G20 move in India. We see what he has done with leaders from the political and the business spaces in the last couple of days away from Africa. Just give us an assessment, a candid assessment of what all of this means.
I saw in the newspaper you just finished reviewing, one of the papers that said, I think a Nation, to be specific, that said Tinubu makes a triple impact by attracting foreign investment.
He has been able to strike multiple deals.
Multiple deals.
Right.
I think that's a good development. Now, will the deal be hanging? What have been my hanging with some of the bureaucrats in the ministry? Or will it go down? Will it be allowed to go down so that the average Nigerians on the street will be able to feel the impact? It's not just striking a deal, but feeling the impact. Now, we have this subsidy removal, just as we said, palliatives. Government has talked about palliatives, and every state is being given a portion of the money to be able to distribute to their indigents. But you know, you and I know what is going on in the states now. There is quarrel about how it's going to be shared. There is this party that is accusing the other party about shortchanging some communities, some would-be beneficiaries. So now the governors, some of them are even at a fix. Don't even know exactly what to do with the palliative. Like for instance, Borno state government has said, okay, if federal government is giving us 5 billion naira as a state, and me, I'm adding 5 billion naira, making 10 billion, so that it will go round. Because the 5 billion naira will not go round. And if it goes round, if I give you 5,000 naira, what will it do to you? It can't even give you a pot of soup in today's Nigeria. Let me tell you one thing. This Tinubu, our president today, or Nigeria's president today, I covered him when he was governor in Lagos State. I was practicing then. I know that time in Lagos State, where I was staying, I was paying 20 naira.
For an apartment?
Yes, 20 naira. That 20 naira today can't buy you anything. Not to even talk of putting shelter on you. That 20 naira today can't buy you anything. A bottle of Coke was it 3 naira or thereabout? And that was when Tinubu was governor in Lagos State. But look at the situation now. I don't pity him. I don't even envy him too.
Because he has a lot of work on his hands.
He has, in fact, let us now prove his mettle that what I did in Lagos as a governor, I can do it in Abuja.
As we wrap up now, let's talk about what some people now call the Tinubu magic in Lagos. I mean, you just made allusion to that.
Yes.
Between 1999 and 2007,
yes.
8 years, they say he did, for want of better words, magic in Lagos State. On the basis of that, there are Nigerians who now believe that he can replicate it as the president on the federal level. Do you see that happening, given the realities we have now?
Well, I see that happening. He is gradually getting there. I'm not speaking, I'm not the spokesman, but I see that happening. Now, this man, let us put ourselves in his shoes too. He had a tribunal case that he was looking at. The first order has been cleared, giving a clean bill. Another one is there. That's the Supreme Court. It's there. So, I think it is after all this, then he will now settle down, because I'm even told that the ministers he appointed now, the ministers are not sure if they are going to remain there.
What's the reason for that?
The reason is that after this man now settles down, when he finishes from all the court processes, he will now select a crack team. Some of these ones he had now, compensation, you worked for me, come and be minister. Even Wike, who is from another party, worked for Tinubu.
So you're saying former Rivers State governor is being compensated with this appointment?
Yes. He worked for Tinubu against Atiku in his state. Go and find out. That's why himself and Atiku now, he is even calling for Atiku's sack from the party. So, this is compensatory. You worked for me, I have compensated you. When you finish, let us finish from the Supreme Court. I will now select a crack team that will do the job for Nigerians.
Just on the final note, President Tinubu has, if you like, two very key aspects of his life that he manages now. I mean, I'm not even talking about his biological family. He has Nigeria that voted for him.
Yes.
He has to provide leadership.
Exactly.
And he has the APC, the ruling party, the All Progressives Congress. He also has to provide leadership internally. How much of work do you see him having to do in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead as president and leader of the party?
He is aware of this fact that he has an enormous task ahead of him, and is trying to see how he can do that. You see, let me tell you, as president, you are president of the entire country, whether they vote for you or not. You are president. Like I saw, there's this one, Kemi Yusufu, who said Bola Tinubu is not my president. I read it in one paper yesterday. I just looked at it.
Aisha Yusufu.
Aisha Yusufu.
Right.
He said, Bola Tinubu is not my president. Now, if you ask her which country you come from, she will tell you I'm a Nigerian. Who is the president of Nigeria? For goodness sake, is Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And that automatically means he's your president.
So it's not about whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not. It's not your president. Whether you are APC or PDP or ABGA or whatever. Today, in today's Nigeria, Tinubu is your president. There is no two ways about it. So all we need as Nigerians is to give that man the support to be able to carry on with the nation building. And now we are talking about hardship in the country. If all of us come together and team up as one, we can help this man salvage this country.
I want to say a big thank you to you, Sunday Ayami, for coming to spend some time with us this morning to share your insights.
Thank you so much.
I would not take it for granted. I've been talking with a veteran journalist, Sunday Ayami, and he's been sharing his thoughts on 100 days in office of President Bola Tinubu. We're taking a quick break now, but the conversation continues here on Global Television. Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
When we call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle with the ASIS
The
strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies to, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
When we call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle with the ASIS
The
strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies to, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
the legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
When we call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle with the ASIS
The
strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Thank you everyone for staying with us. We do appreciate it. We have a second guest with us to just stretch the conversation around the 100 days in office of President Bola Tinubu quickly this morning on the show. I'm joined by Haruna Brimo, who's a public affairs commentator. Thank you, Brimo, for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Very great to see you. So I was just wondering a while ago, it has become a tradition now that we want to always look at 100 days in office of either a governor or the president. Talk to us real quick about the significance of this 100 days tradition.
Yeah, it gives us the opportunity to actually evaluate the first 3 months plus on how how a particular government is taking footing, how is driving foundational changes, how is bringing about a strategic policy direction that the government will go in the next 4 years or in a particular term. So it's been part of our democracy across the respective tiers. But bringing it back to the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration, it afforded us from the get-go, from the very first day of resumption, we saw a government that was determined to make some daring, strategic and revolutionary decisions across the sphere of our politics, economy, and social inclusion.
Let's talk about strategy precisely. Some people say some of the things that we today refer to as policies, as announced by the Tinubu administration, are actually not in the core sense policies. They are just pronouncements. One of the readily available examples they would cite is the removal of fuel subsidy, because they say if it were a policy, there would be a systematic approach to it. Do you share that opinion?
The issue of subsidy and its removal has been done. You don't need, that's why I just said a daring revolutionary approach. It's not necessarily, there's nothing like policy of subsidy removal. There has been law, there has been created by the previous administration to phase out subsidy. But there has never been, if you look at, if we go back to the time of Yaradua to Goodluck and the Goodluck of 2012 January, there has been attempts to actually let the subsidy regime go. But nobody has had that daring strategic will and political willpower to drive its implementation. And that's why I didn't use the word policy, you understand? So Tinubu came with a clear-cut strategy, letting you know that it's not going to be business as usual from the get-go, from the very day he took over as president of Nigeria. significantly, particularly about subsidy. For a reason. The subsidy on its own might not be a policy direction, the removal of subsidy.
Right.
But the economic policies of Tinubu is built around driving a robust economy of revenue generation. And generating revenue with a backlog of subsidies to pay and inheriting a situation whereby we need to borrow to pay subsidy was never going to be, was going to have an adverse effect in its other economic drive. So he needed to let it just go at that point in time. So it was not an issue of whether policies, it was more of what was the strategy of Tinubu coming to power to remove subsidy to drive his own economic policy. Because subsidy just needed to go to now have a robust base to drive every other economic policy.
The maritime, I mean the blue economy, as we now know it,
Yes.
is a top priority for the renewed hope agenda of the president, President Tinubu. But again, we understand that that sector itself is very problematic. You want to add that to issues around oil theft in the oil and gas sector. You want to add that to labor-specific issues. You want to add that to deficit in infrastructure. You want to add that to deficit, or if you like, gap in housing and so on and so forth. This is a potpourri of issues that the president needs to handle. What is the possibility that all of these issues can be addressed as quickly as possible?
The essence of creating that particular ministry, remember, what you now refer to as the blue economy, was hitherto part of a transport ministry, Ministry of Transport. Even at the time, we have Ministry of Transport and Aviation. You understand? All meshed together. So we have to first of all unbuckle them all, so that we'll be able to face them strategically one after the other. The blue economy is very rich in revenue generation for Nigeria. The issue of oil theft only come to play because you use the sea for the movement of the oil. Imagine if the NNPC or the Petroleum Ministry is dealing with the theft from the onset, from the point of drilling. It will not even get to the sea. You understand? We have the NPA, we have the NIMASA and other related Nigerian Waterways.
Nigerian Shippers Council.
You know, we have the waterways. So opening all that, let's look at the possibilities, the positivity in these policies. Not just the disadvantage or the challenges. The challenges are going to come. They are part of it. But looking at opening those intricate sector within a sector and the multiplier effect in revenue generation, employment creation, diversification and all that, it's a good sign for the future. And I believe this ministry is going to be sustained even beyond the life of this administration. It's already a ministry that has come to stay, because the blue economy is the way to go right now in the new world order of even talking of climate change. You understand? A lot of impacts in the blue economy ministry, a lot of things to do, a lot of activities in that place. Can never be overemphasized when compared to the challenges. Challenges will definitely be part of it. The issue of, you just mentioned them, the labor issue, the infrastructure deficit. Those infrastructure, a lot of concerted effort has been made in the previous administration to build infrastructure in NIMASA, NPA, and even the investment in the Lekki deep sea ports, you know, other free trade zones that are being created. The one in Calabar will be revived. The water, how do I put it? The Anambra on the Onitsha port, or mini port. There is another one in Koko in Delta State. These are ports that have been moribund. So when all these are being activated, you need a ministry to provide that driving force for them to work. And it's a good one.
During his inaugural speech, some of the areas that the president had specifically talked about were fiscal and monetary policies. It was just a few weeks after that that he appointed Mr. Obaze to be special investigator. All right, we see some of the work he has been doing now. He's beginning to dig up some very critical revelations. Just yesterday, there were unconfirmed reports that a deputy governor of the CBN, Mrs. Aisha, had been arrested and quizzed in relation to some acquisition of banks, of course, within the financial space. how far-reaching are these reforms with regards to the president's?
It's not necessarily look at
agenda?
what the president said in his inaugural speech. He said there's going to be in-house cleaning,
right,
across the monetary front.
Is that what we're seeing now?
Definitely. The in-house cleaning needs to start from the central bank, who are supposed to be the drivers of every monetary policy. The responsibility of government, 80% lies in the fiscal policy design. But you need a more working, transparent, and vibrant CBN to help you use monetary policy to deliver the fiscal policy. But a situation whereby the CBN or the regulatory platform to use the monetary policy, implement the fiscal policy is in a mess in itself. You cannot get the desired results. So what you are saying is more of a checking, it's more of check. The reform have not even started, real. We have to first of all evaluate and reevaluate where we are. You saw the first one was the publication of the several years financial statement from CBN. You know, first of all,
which is historic.
Which is historic, letting us know where are we as far as the CBN's balance sheet is concerned. How did we get to this? If you don't know where you are, you will not know how to take the next step to move further. So what Obaze is doing is just to unravel a whole lot of things as far as corporate issue of corporate governance within them. You know, how do you have there's a breach on corporate governance? Though we don't have we've not had the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria has tried their best to create some regulatory designs, but we need a direct law like an act of parliament. Like this, just like the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2004 that was created by two erudite, one senator and one House of Rep member. One was Sarbanes, one was Oxley in the United States of America to curb the issue of the Enron. Enron, the biggest energy company in the world that collapsed, and the WorldCom saga. Right. You know, where the issue of corporate governance came to play, where you discover a lot of material misstatements in their financial reports. You know, underpinning issues that collapse the energy sector in the whole world then. And the country, a country that want real reform, they came up with an act to actually check. So that is the kind of thing we need in Nigeria right now. Financial Reporting Council will keep bringing out guidelines, you know, like what the INEC, the judgment of the INEC was talking about. One is INEC guideline. It's operational. You need, one is electoral act. You understand? When the guideline and the act clashes, the guideline keep quiet.
So the act will override the guidelines.
Exactly.
Apparently.
So we actually need something like a Sarbanes-Oxley Act. We need an act from the parliament on corporate governance in Nigeria to check a lot that is going on in the financial system. Financial system here talking about the bank and the non-banking, even the insurance company. A lot is going on the capital market. A lot of, I call it corporate buccaneering. So Obaze is just doing a tip, just scratching the surface. The surface, you understand? Just because we are the government is trying to look at the central bank itself as a regulatory agency. I hope after the central bank they have to go to the Nigeria Insurance Corporation, other financial and non-financial. And from the financial system is a combination of financial and non-financial actors or players. You understand? That is what makes the financial system. Because even as the president was in in New Delhi, in India, one of the issues he talks about is coming back to drive financial inclusion, where we have to now synchronize our database using the NIN. Combining NIN just combined with BVN and now using the platform of a Nigeria Interbank payment system, you know, whereby you need to soften this regulatory. You now drive an act like the stack. There's a stack technology in India, which is driving the financial inclusion, where every other person will have seamless access to play in the financial system. You can operate a payment platform, just open an app, operate a implementer, do the necessary thing without hurdle, and then removing people from poverty. So these are all the long-term impacts of the cleaning that is going on in CBN. Without a clean CBN, you cannot drive any monetary framework that will interface with technology and to now, on the long run, bring about the financial inclusion we are talking about.
The CBN, just like many other regulators in the financial space, including the SEC and the NDIC that you talked about, have been time and again accused of, some people say malfeasance, some people say unethical practices, and so on and so forth. That raises the question of the depth of corruption itself. We have seen presidents come and go talking about corruption since 1999 in the Obasanjo days. How differently do you see President Tinubu fighting corruption?
Yeah, because the President Tinubu approach now is more of a systemic. Because the corruption is actually systemic. We'll be looking for those, somebody that has stolen 2 billion. Why don't you fight or correct a system that gave such person the room to steal 2 billion?
So you plug those gaps.
Exactly. You know, like even the another issue has to do with the set up a committee on fiscal policy and tax reform committee with a 1-year mandate to harmonize the tax system. You understand? When you drive a tax harmonization system and that will now bring a robust fiscal policy framework for the country, a lot of system, a lot of loopholes, where you have to say, okay, instead of custom collecting duties, collecting revenue here, this one collecting revenue, all the agencies collecting revenue, harmonize them. All you need to do is have access to FRS, Federal Inland Revenue Service. You understand? This is the federal agency by law to collect revenue beyond tax. They did not say federal tax, federal inland revenue. Every inland revenue that comes to Nigeria, why should custom be collected? Why should this one be collected? You go to Nigeria immigration, they are collecting. Every revenue agency, they want to, when it's now harmonized, a lot of, you can imagine the chain of corruption that will be cut off systematically. Those doing sharp practices in the custom, in immigration, in other revenue generating agencies, they will be all cut off. What you need to do is to do your work. When it gets to the point of payment where the corruption is supposed to happen, the responsible agency by law, FRS, will take charge of that. You go and pay. You go and pay your excise duty is a part of tax.
Right.
Import duty is their taxes. Why should the custom be collecting taxes? Well, we have a revenue agency empowered by law.
That sounds like building on the framework of the Treasury Single Account, the TSA.
Exactly. The TSA was just to, that one was mailing to galvanize, I call it control account. It's just a control account whereby your income and expenditure at the end of the day, whatever balance fall back. So by 5 o'clock every evening, the president of Nigeria, if he wants to know, across all the ministries and MDAs, though some agencies up till now, they've not keen into it.
Isn't that a criminal act in itself?
It's a breach. You understand? But with this kind of arrangement, when the FRS will now know where the searchlight should be on.
I want to ask you this in 1 minute. We've seen the president suspend the CBN governor, Emefiele. He has done same to Rashid Bawa of EFCC. All right, we've seen a couple of similar actions being taken. How much of, unpleasant signal does this send to prospective foreign investors?
The prospective foreign investors are looking for a vibrant Nigeria, a Nigeria that is devoid of sharp practices in the process, and also a Nigeria that has a less bureaucratic bottleneck. And fighting corruption is one of the positive signals that, they know that their investment is going to be safe. So there's nothing like the arrest of CBN governor was to forestall any possible escape, because their investigation is going on. We are going to court, and the security agency or the respective agency involved, they need time to really do it. We are talking of a man that spent about 9 years as CBN governor. So you don't just rush. As you are unraveling one, it lead to one, it lead to this. You understand? In the process now, you now see the deputy governor, former deputy governor of the CBN, being quizzed now. It's all in process. And some of these things, corruption is done in cahoot with all the relevant or possible syndicated agencies in it. You understand? When somebody like Bawa is being called or is being arrested, we've not had officially what is being picked for. You understand? Until then, there are lots that is going on, interrogation, and it now depends on how cooperative he is to the authorities. If you are cooperative enough to give him whatever, answer the questions they are asking you, give them leads to whatever they need, then you be, his case by now should be in court, would have been in court.
Would have been charged already.
Yeah.
I'd like to say a big thank you to you, Haruna Brahima, for coming this morning.
Thank you very
to
much.
be a part of the program. Thank you, everyone, for watching. That's what we're living here on Global TV's Global Morning. I'm Riyag Mofwegbe. Our transmission here continues. Do stay with us. Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies to, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle, the ASU
The
strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.